Good morning. Good to be with you all. Thank you for joining us at Grace. If you're with us here in the sanctuary or online, thank you for being with us today. We've got a few announcements as we get started. And one thing to let you know about, through the fall, we collected items for UMCOR, the United Methodist Committee on Relief. And we collected items for their school kits and their personal dignity kits. And Jean just let me know that they got those all dropped off for UMCOR over this weekend. And together we had 197 kits that they packed. 120 of them were school kits, and 197 of them, or 77 of them, were the personal dignity kits. So altogether, we got 197 of those kits together for UMCOR. So thank you to everybody that donated and made that possible. Right now, we are starting a new project with Bidwell Riverside, putting together some fleece tie blankets, and we've got a sign-up sheet in the hall. We've already had a lot of folks collect their kits to start making those blankets, but if you want to get involved with that, let me know and we'll get you connected to that program. Our youth group right now is doing a fundraiser for wreaths. There's a couple more weeks where you can fill out a form and order a wreath from our youth group. The forms, if you're here at the church, are at the table in the entryway, and if you're watching online, you can go to gracedesmoines.org and find it there. Finally, we are just wrapping up our fall stewardship campaign and our pledge drive, hoping to set our budget for next year. So if you have pledged, thank you very much for getting your pledge in. And if you haven't yet, you still have time to. There are pledge cards here at the church at the front table or on the offering tables by the doors. And there's also a place for you to pledge online, or you can also call the church office and leave your pledge that way. Thank you for being with us at worship here at Grace. It is good to be together. And now Muriel will lead us in our call to worship.
Please join me in the call to worship. We remember, O God, the saints of history who have blazed a trail of faithful love through time. We remember, O God, the tender touch of loved ones, the example of heroes, the healing words of comforters. We remember, O God, the gentle strength of grandparents, the loyalty of friends, the kindness of strangers, the joy of children, the sacrifice of parents. We remember, O God, the supreme love of Jesus, the blessing of his Spirit, the reminder of his words, the sharing of his suffering, the glory of his resurrection, shone forth in the lives of his disciples, young and old, dead and living, articulate and silent, strange and familiar, brilliant and ordinary. We remember in every time and place the saints of God who have shown us the Lord. Please stand as you are able for hymn 708, Rejoice in God's Saints.
Forget
Please be seated. Please join me in the opening prayer. God, you have been with us throughout the ages. You have borne witness to the ways in which the story of us, of all that has come into being, has been woven together, piece by piece, life by life. We recognize today the saints who have gone before us. We cherish the saints who hungered for righteousness and whose sacrifices have contributed to a more just society. We hold in remembrance the saints who have loved us, those who have nurtured us, embraced us, celebrated us, or supported us. Help us, gracious God, to lean on the witness of those who have gone before us, drawing on the love, justice, community, and faith that weaves us together generation after generation, past, present, and future. With gratitude and in remembrance we pray. Amen. The gospel reading today is from the book of Mark, chapter 12, verses 38 through 44. As he, Jesus, was teaching, he said, "Watch out for the legal experts. They like to walk around in long robes. They want to be greeted with honor in the markets. They long for places of honor in the synagogues and at banquets. They are the ones who cheat widows out of their homes, and to show off, they say long prayers. They will be judged most harshly." Jesus sat across from the collection box for the temple treasury and observed how the crowd gave their money. Many rich people were throwing in lots of money. One poor widow came forward and put in 2 small copper coins worth a penny. Jesus called his disciples to him and said, "I assure you that this poor widow has put in more than everyone who's been putting money in the treasury. All of them were giving out of their spare change, but she, from her hopeless poverty, has given everything she had, even what she needed to live on."
In the United Methodist Church today, we are recognizing this Sunday as All Saints' Day. And All Saints' Day is really on November 1st. And it was on November 1st in 1767 that John Wesley, the founder of this Methodist movement, wrote, "I always find this a comfortable day." And he went on to write that I find this to be a day that I particularly love. And I like to imagine that John Wesley wrote those words on November 1st, 1767, because he knew 217 later it would be my birthday. I brought Wesley comfort and joy on that particular day, and you are all welcome because of it. Now, Wesley loved All Saints' Day. But Wesley also had an interesting relationship with All Saints' Day because in the Methodist movement that we're a part of, we don't really elect saints. We don't sort of venerate some saints above others. We hold that we are all saints and all a part of this priesthood of all believers. So depending on your church background and your traditions that you had growing up, you might be familiar with All Saints' Day. Most Christian traditions have some way of recognizing saints, but in a variety of different ways. We set this day aside in the United Methodist Church to recognize those saints that have gone before us, to celebrate the people that have shown us grace and peace in our lives, that have led us in the direction of Jesus. And we now, with this legacy that we are standing on, devote ourselves to striving to do the same thing for others, to live with this hope and peace for one another. The gospel reading from Mark gives us a glimpse into a life of an unnamed saint. This widow is an example of faithful devotion to God because she has given everything that she has and she doesn't have any hope of recognition. While others toss in their spare change to the temple treasury, they expect to get honor and recognition because of it, but she sort of sneaks by and just meekly offers all that she has. Now, the temple treasury collection box, it was not passed among the assembled worshipers like a collection basket is these days. It was just sort of sitting outside the worshiping space in the temple. So even if people weren't going into the temple to worship, they could leave an offering. It would be as if instead of having those parking signs on the corners of our facility, we had a collection box out there so people could just toss in their offerings without entering the facility. Now, because of that, you might be able to imagine that giving to the temple treasury, giving to the temple in the first century, it wasn't always discreet. It was out in the open. Everyone could see what you were doing. You didn't first put your offering into an envelope to then subtly put it in a basket. It was just out there. And on top of that, the temple treasury collection box, it had sort of this trumpet shape on it. Now, that shape did a couple things. It helped to make noise, so the offering was a little more, I guess, entertaining. You could have that clink and clang, but it also stopped people from reaching in and grabbing anything out of it. So you could imagine that someone was collecting their offering in one of those metal containers, and if someone had a lot of money to drop off, if they just had their spare change, but they wanted to be recognized, and they dropped that, it could get loud, right? Like it gets a little noisy. So if one person thinks that they want to show off, that they are really proud of their wealth and their gift, that they want to be recognized for what they are giving, it wouldn't take much to get recognized in that sort of setting. But this poor widow that Jesus talks about just has 2 coins, drops them in, and goes on with her life. Jesus ignores all of those noisemakers, but they pay close attention to that faint plink of those 2 tiny copper coins that the widow gave to the collection. And Jesus says, this poor widow has put in more than everyone. She has given everything that she had, even what she needed to live on. And Jesus is not really speaking in hyperbole here, because when Jesus says all that she had to live on, Jesus is speaking in the original Greek, the word life. That is what Jesus says in the text in Greek. Live on is bios, which you might recognize from biography or biology. It is that Greek word for life. Jesus says this woman has given her entire life. She has given her whole self to this. And this woman, this widow, she has literally given everything. She now has nothing left to give. She has offered it all. And I wonder how many of us feel a bit like that unnamed and unknown widow, where we feel like we've given everything that we can, and we're not sure what else, if anything, we can give at this moment. On this All Saints Sunday, as we wonder what there is left to give, when it feels like there is nothing left to give, I started to think this week about some of my experience with hospice care and the saints that have gone before us. Because there are few experiences that can make us feel more impoverished than feeling helpless. We like to imagine that we will always be in control, that we will always be able to take care of ourselves somehow, but in hospice care there comes a moment where we are no longer able to provide for even our most basic needs. We come to a place where we are beyond feeding ourselves, beyond drinking, beyond talking, sometimes beyond opening our eyes or even able to make eye contact with one another. Yet, even when there is nothing left to give, there are moments in hospice where someone turns their head, and they might not even open their eyes, but you know that they are making contact with you. And that sort of moment is sacred and holy, and it tells you more than words could say. So one of the saints that we are remembering this year is Lyle Shires. And the first time I went to visit Lyle in hospice, he was just dismissed from the hospital. He was in a lot of pain due to his cancer, and the first thing he wanted me to know was how thankful he was. When Grant McCollum was in the hospital,